speaker, no sermon. Go ahead. So, did anybody enjoy that? That was fun, wasn't it? Now, we sort of need to change a little bit, kind of slow down. I was going to start beating with this, but it didn't seem quite right. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. My name is Ray Knutson, and I'm very pleased to be your worship leader on today's service. This is the second time I've been worship service since we basically came back together as a congregation, and it's still thrilling to see so many of you out there. I really get a lot out of that. We welcome all at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. All of you are welcome. And all of you are sacred. Whatever your past was like, whatever this present moment holds for you, we invite you to journey into the future together. And welcome to everyone joining us via the internet. We are delighted you're here. This congregation is all of us, together, in person and online. If you're a new visitor, you'll find a link to our visitor form in the video description, or send an email to the office and let us know how you found us. Now I'd like to invite Reverend David, to introduce our guest preacher today. Do you need a
I don't need notes. I think I'm good. Actually, before I do, let me sneak in 2 quick announcements. One is next Sunday is the last of our regular church year Sundays. It's the last of our 2 service Sundays at 9 and 11. Starting on June 12th, we're going to go to 1 service on Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock so that both the 9 and the 11 can miss it equally. No, just give yourself some grace if you come late or early. That's going to be kicked off on June 12th. Christopher Watkins-Lamb, our former intern, now Reverend Christopher, is going to be coming back to preach, and I am delighted for him to be back and for a whole bunch of great services this summer from guests as well as members of the congregation, and a couple in there from me also. The other thing to mention, though, for next week is our flower ceremony. So bring a flower with you, and if you haven't been to one of these before, that's all I'm going to explain. Just bring a flower with you, and you'll get the full details at the service next week. I am delighted to introduce and to welcome our guest speaker this morning, who I've known for some time, for 22, almost 23 years ago. Teri and I met because a mutual friend knew we were both interested in Unitarian Universalist ministry and said, oh, you should probably talk to each other, and now takes credit for our 20-year marriage. For our last 8 years together, before I came here to serve you, Teri and I served together in co-ministry at a church in Chicago. And so it is both a delight to welcome her to lead worship this morning, and it's also fun for me to get to lead worship with you again after so long. So. Mm-hmm.
I offer these words from our colleague, the Reverend Erica Hewitt. As we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world. Those pressures that ask us to perform, to take up masks, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect, if only for this hour. This is a community of compassion and welcoming. You do not have to do anything to earn the love contained within these walls.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be braver or smarter or stronger or better than you are in this moment to belong here with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able, and your seeking mind, no matter how busy, and your animal heart, no matter how broken.
Bring all that you are and all that you love to this hour together. Let us worship together.
We rise in body or in spirit. Let's begin in song.
Okay, this is where you come in with your shakers. Let's get a beat going. Give me a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you don't have a shaker, you can clap. Is that about the right speed? And if anybody wants this shaker, it's the last one. You can come get it. Come get it. Just take it from me. Try and take it from me. Is that too slow? A little bit faster. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, ready, go. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, come in. Enter, Thank you.
So often, when we think of a wisdom story in a church context, it feels like it has to have some gravitas or solemnity. You've got to sit at the right time, maybe stand at the right time. Think about it. Let it stay in our brains a lot as Unitarian Universalists. Well, we can also learn wisdom from children and playfulness and joy. And so in that spirit, we're going to offer a little bit different of a story this morning. So once there was a little boy, and he went to the pet store and he picked a fish. This little fish, I want him. I like him. He likes me. I will call him Otto. He's a cousin of Nemo.
Now, the owner of the pet store said, I'll tell you how to feed him. When you feed a fish, never feed him a lot. No more than a spot, or something may happen, you never know what. We try this with me because this is important advice for all of us to remember. Never feed him a lot, no more than a spot, or something may happen. You never know what. All right, you all are ready to be fish parents.
Well, he took Otto home and gave him some food. Not much. Just a spot. David, can you feed our fish just a spot?
One spot?
Let's say one spot. We're going to be careful. I think he's a little hungrier. Can you give him one more spot?
2 spots. No.
This did not make Otto happy. He wanted more food. He had to have more food. Poor Otto. The boy remembered, never feed him a lot. No more than a spot. Or something may happen. You never know what. Oh. So he got So Otto grew, and he started to grow, and he got too big for his fishbowl. He couldn't even turn around. He likes being petted, Otto. He's a very soft, four-called fish. So the boy saw he was bigger, and he's a bigger fish, so he needs more food, and he decided never feed him a lot, but Otto needs a lot. He's a special fish. So he fed him the whole box. You never know what may happen, right? Well, something did happen. Otto grew and grew and grew right out of his fishbowl. And Otto started swimming around, and the boy remembered, never feed him. No more than a spot. Or something may happen. You never know. What? This fish was out of control. Now, why do we feed things? You are smart people. Come on. To grow, to nourish ourselves, to have energy. And as adults, sometimes we forget that we're still growing. Like, I do aspire to be taller than 5'2", but that's not happening. But my mind and heart grows, and that's part of why we come to church. And if we're stingy with our feeding, we can't grow as much. And so when we are generous and abundant, we can grow our spirits and our hearts and our congregation. And what may happen, we never know what.
How am I supposed to follow that? Well, so if you're joining us online and you have a candle or a chalice nearby, please get ready to light it. We invite you to type in the chat box where your chalice is lit, the street or neighborhood, or what city if you're joining us from outside the Boulder area. And now, I'd like to invite Dorothy Charlo to light this morning's chalice. Dorothy?
Good morning. In keeping with our recent themes of nurturing spirituality and exploring new paths, I want to tell you about my lifelong journey to this church. I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas at a time when racial segregation was enforced by law. In my daily life, I observed cruelties and wounding depreciation against African Americans, which distressed me. I attended the Methodist church that my parents wanted me to go to, but that church was unable to act against segregation or even seemingly to recognize the racism. Mostly because of this, my feeling of being alone in confronting what seemed a severe social injustice to me, I decided that I wasn't a Christian and wanted nothing to do with the church. I fled the South to go to a Quaker college, Swarthmore, in Pennsylvania. I was moved by the Quakers' abolitionist history and their activism against war. For the next 50 years or so, I found spiritual solace and inspiration in music and nature. I sang with community choirs and went hiking at our cabin near Estes Park. Every now and then, I would sneak a visit to a Quaker meeting or a Unitarian church, still feeling that church was not for me. Life moved on. In 2016, my kids and I placed my beloved husband in memory care for his advancing Alzheimer's. Also in 2016, I was reeling from a change in the political leadership of this country, which deeply worried me. I decided I needed a community of like-minded souls, so I started coming to this church. In 2017, when my husband died, Reverend Kelly helped me plan a memorial service here that my family and I were deeply comforted by. We knew that Jim, who was an ex-Catholic but a lover of philosophical and spiritual meditations, would have felt comfortable here. I've had to rework 50 years of internal anti-church messages, but it's been easier than I expected because the church offered me a chance to focus on questions, not prescribed answers. I light this chalice in gratitude for finally finding and committing to this beloved community where I feel support and acceptance in my spiritual searching. Well, I managed to put out the light. There's also some physical searching involved here.
Thank you, Dorothy. We now invite all those gathered in your various locations to join together in fellowship and community as we all say aloud together our congregation's covenant. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
Friends, will you join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation? A spirit of slowing down in body and heart and mind. Let's begin by taking a breath all together. And another. Part of our work is to remember all the threads of living that are woven together. To remember that joy and delight, that hope and excitement are facts of life, and too that sorrow and suffering, that senseless tragedy is also a fact of life. This week we lift up and hold in love and in memory all those who died in the shooting in Texas. Mindful of the ways, too, for many of us, that it brings back our recollection and memories of the shooting here in Boulder 2 years ago. The pain and the difficulty of that. The way that it touches a nerve we thought maybe had healed over and discover is still raw. And that spirit of memory and of hope and resolve for change. I share these words by the poet Amanda Gorman called A Hymn for the Hurting. Everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children, cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days, while at the same time blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try, that while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. Maybe everything hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts, may everything change. We'll be together in silence for 7 breaths. Amen. Each week in our service, we set aside time in ritual to remember and make visible that the joys and the cares, the hopes and the fears that we carry that feel so isolating and individual, that we're not alone in any of them. And so in just a moment as the music begins, I invite you to come forward, to take a stone from the bowl, a little piece of the mountains, and to hold it in your hand. Feel the weight of your hope and your sorrow, and then place it into the dirt. Earth from right here, the sacred ground of the Ute and Arapaho peoples, that in ritual we might remember that each of our joys and our sorrows are not alone and are held in something larger than any of us. I'll place a first stone in remembrance this Memorial Day weekend of all those who died in armed service. Please come forward.
Our children always have much to teach us. I know this as a pastor and as a parent. Years ago, when we lived in Chicago, our children's preschool had a summer cookout. Now, this is common in the city to meet in city parks because most people don't have yards. In the city, mid-rise, low-rise, high-rise all refer to the size of your building, not the cut of your jeans. As kiddos finished their hot dogs and hamburgers, they started to play. It was this time of year. At first glance, very quickly it became mayhem. About 50 children running this way and that, a soccer ball coming by my left, a few frisbees in the air simultaneously, flung from little hands without intentional targets, and peppered with darts. Now remember, these children are 3, so they don't quite have the hand-eye coordination or the concept that there's a structure to play, that you throw something and you receive it. So they're just ad-libbing as you go, and there's just objects flying over and over. Remember, too, that a very large city park in Chicago is a very small park in Colorado. So within a hazardous proximity, a few children ran around flapping their arms, trying to fly stringless kites just from the tail. They looked like if they went any faster, they might become airborne and fly over Lake Michigan. Now, some of the children preferred rough and tumble gross motor play. They started doing somersaults and cartwheels and kind of falling on each other. I learned from one of the nursery school teachers that when children don't know socially yet how to initiate play, they walk over to the person they're interested in and just fall on them. So if you're feeling your small talk and coffee hour is a little stifled, you can just walk over and maybe fall on somebody. My favorite moment came watching a little girl named Katya. She had moved to the neighborhood just 1 week prior from Russia. She did not know a word of English. And here she was, just days later, easily initiating play, even without a shared language. She grabbed a jump rope and offered the other end to a child and pretended it was a snake. And they figured it out very quickly what this game was and how it would evolve. They ran around the park for about an hour hissing like snakes. And they would take their pretend snake and go up to each person, child and adult, and hiss at them in a friendly sort of way and tickle them in kind of an appropriate sort of way. And without words, they communicated this, and they squealed with delight. And without words, they approached every single adult and every child. They tested social norms and interpersonal psychology with aplomb. This is more cooperation than our legislature, than most corporate boards. Now, I don't serve this church, so I don't know about your church board. Now, formerly, scientists thought that only mammals played and that it was primarily practice for hunting skills, because we can only explain play if it has a rational and useful purpose. Well, the scientists were kind of raised to be looking at that. You know, their training kind of narrowed that viewpoint. It turns out that many kinds of species play, not just mammals. And at times, the desire to play is stronger than the desire to eat. Think about that. Play is so valuable, sometimes it's more important than the drive to eat. Now, it's not merely for children to practice playing so that they're ready for the real world. That is certainly part of what they're doing. But what if there was no play? Imagine a life without books, without movies, art, no comedy, no irony, no flirting, no Saturday Night Live. We could think about play as the air we breathe or the water we swim in. Rarely do we notice it or appreciate it as adults. As the weight of COVID and the time of the pandemic pressed down upon us with such heaviness, it laid bare the fissures in our society, our social structure, our healthcare system, racial disparity, and our work lives. And for those of us who may not have had direct visibility into that, in the circumstances of our own lives, it started to become painfully clear. And we were faced with staggering numbers of deaths, illness, financial disaster. And people around the world started questioning how they spent their time. and their lives. This has been particularly striking in the U.S., where our work-life balance has little to no balance in it. I have asked our 13-year-old kiddo, Jay, as she's learning and exploring what she might do in high school and later on for her vocation, what she's interested in. She quipped what I later learned is a very popular meme. What do you dream about being when you grow up? I don't dream about work. I don't dream of labor. We live in a culture shaped by a Protestant work ethic. Salvation comes from works, not grace, if only we work hard enough. Now, maybe that language doesn't speak to you, that traditional theological language. But I would argue that that belief structure still undergirds our social structure and values and norms in our society. We live in a culture that values high achievement, one that makes us feel guilty for playing. You've got to finish your work first. A culture that measures life hours as monetary units since the Industrial Revolution. And if we're not working, our culture says not only are we unproductive, but it becomes kind of a theological moral issue. Our idleness is sinful. And we may not say sinful, but we make excuses. Like, oh, well, I went away, but I had been working really hard and took some time off, and I'll catch up with those emails and get back to you all on Monday. I did put my out-of-office responder on from my phone, but I have time off, so I'll only be checking about 4 times a day. Do you ever feel bad, like you've made a mistake if you didn't get through your to-do list that day? I know, it's such failures we are here in Boulder. We disgust ourselves when we don't finish our to-do list. What about when the email box is full and you're a little embarrassed to ever tell anyone how many messages are there and you still claim to be doing inbox 0? At a certain point, I do think the Google developers not too far from here just said 99 plus on the mobile device, so you had some little bit of encouragement rather than despair when you saw the numbers grow into the 4 digits. At a certain point, sleep feels like an indulgence, because how would I know if I tried my best unless I sacrificed? Does our work shape our identity, give us purpose, a foundation and structure to our days through the ups and downs? Do we strive for an achievement that somehow saves us? It saves our value, our social standing, and in our society, the very real consequences of bread on the table and healthcare. That's salvation by works. So often we consider play to be frivolous and inconsequential. And I've spent most of my life that way. I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad was 2nd generation, and my grandmother, actually I learned after moving here, was raised in Greeley. This is amazing, and one of her sisters is buried in the Longmont Cemetery right by where we live. It's like coming full circle. They were beet farmers and would glean from the harvest from other farmers because they didn't have money to buy food. And so that work ethic that I was raised with that was really harsh made a lot of sense. That family wanted my generation to get an education and to never struggle to put food on the table. But with it came some pretty big consequences and many decades of therapy. I knew that while I was allowed to play as a child, that it was an indulgence that wouldn't last long. And at a certain point, I just stopped because I wanted to be more grown up, have some independence. COVID interrupted our society enough to provide the space for intense questioning. And that could be really uncomfortable, especially if you were questioning yourself in a place you could not leave, like your house. And it really depended if you were alone or with other people. You didn't have it easy either way. And we missed coming to church because we come to church for a lot of things. In part, we come to church to mark the passing of time, days, seasons, years, and lifetimes. We come to be reminded of our values that, at least for me, I often have a weekly amnesia, and I need like a spiritual chiropractic adjustment to remember what I am here and about and off to do in the world. we come to remember we're mortal, and that whether we realize it or not, we are giving our lives away to something. To what or to whom are you giving your life away to? That may be what worship really is. I've served as a hospice and palliative care chaplain and tended the dying as a parish minister. And I've never heard a single dying person say, "I wish I worked more." There are a lot of other regrets, but never that. We've passed the grim milestone of 1 million deaths in the United States this last week due to COVID. 1 million. And we know the actual numbers are higher, that that's underreported. To learn to live, pay close attention to the dying. To learn to play, pay close attention to the young. How might that change the answer to your question? To whom or to what are you giving your life away? We also come to church each week to hold not only the solemn, but a larger joy. We are here to feed it because our days are numbered. We are here for all of it, the darkness and the light and the twilight and the midday. And if we feed it, if we're not stingy with play and joy, and we give it more than a little spot, it may grow a lot beyond our expectations, out of the fishbowl. We may not be able to imagine what that might do for our lives. And then when you think of it, if everyone in the congregation is doing that, that's when you outgrow one service. You outgrow a fishbowl of a building and start becoming more than your wildest expectations in the community and the world. And this is often done through play. Because when you come to a new place, you're most often coming to have your heart healed and to have some joy. You don't usually walk through the doors to have a miserable hour. So I don't want to throw you a dinner party and only serve you pictures of food this morning. We cannot understand play without playing. So back in that corner and in the far back, you're going to see containers of big beach balls. And so I invite you in a worshipful, joyful sort of way and playful way to start passing them around. Get them in the air. You all know graduations when the caps go up, but they just go up once. This time you get to keep playing with them. So bring them up. Yep, this is okay. It is okay to smile in church. It is okay to play in church. It's okay to laugh in church. That's it. That's it. Yep, keep getting them out. We've got people in the front who are open. This is fantastic. Look at what's happening. You're moving your bodies. I hear laughter. You're probably passing the beach ball to people you don't normally sit with, maybe someone you don't know. No one has lit it on fire yet. You're working together in new ways. And the energy has definitely shifted. So if you're in a church meeting, these beach balls now belong to the church, and you need to mix things up. It's gotten pretty serious. Bring out a few beach balls. You've got to play when the Spirit says play. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to love when the Spirit says love. May it be so. Let us sing together. And you can keep playing. That's what this is all about. May it be so, and amen. Get your
shakers. Gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. Gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing, oh Lord. Gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance, oh Lord. Gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You gotta play when the Spirit says play. You gotta play when the Spirit says play. When the Spirit says play, you gotta play, oh Lord. Gotta play when the Spirit says play. 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 You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. Gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says
I always get these easy parts to follow. Take us out. He just said go home. I don't know. Oh, that was fun. That was fun. Okay. Offering time. Good. Spirit says do. Till it hurts. No, till it, what's the phrase? Till it feels good, yeah. Okay, I'll get serious now. So this month, our offering goes to THR. Together. I know, I wondered if anybody, but Diane knew. THR is the acronym for? There you go. And they used to be known as Attention Homes. I do not know why they changed their names. It's not terribly relevant, but anyway. I'm going to read one long paragraph as opposed to 2 pages because it seems appropriate. Anyway, their mission is to end youth hopelessness and homelessness, probably both. Homelessness is not just a lack of shelter, it's the absence of a home, a place where somebody feels safe, comfortable, secure, and valued. Ending youth homelessness requires all young people to have a place to live, employment, access to education, wellness, and a supportive community. That's what Together has been delivering for 55 years. And I have a fair bit of additional information if people would like to stop me after church. I'll be glad to give it to you. So going back to the normal part of our process, I invite you to give as generously as possible. And I believe we have some ushers in the church service here, I hope. And for those of you that are online, you can make a donation now using the link that's posted on the video description on your screen, or by sending a check to UUCB, or scanning the QR code, again, if you're coming from home and on the video camera there. For your offerings. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community. Thank you.
We come to church to feed one another and to be fed. I'm so grateful to have been able to spend this worship and morning with you. Thank you for your generosity in having me. And so we come. Our spirits need to be fed. You fed mine today. Not a little, maybe a lot, more than a spot. We never know. What? So much is possible. Go forth from this place now fed, at least for this week. May you grow in joy and enter summer and play. Our service has ended, and now our work begins. Go forth in peace, and amen. Will you rise in body or spirit as we close in song?